helped me earlier today.
Do we have everyone but Evelyn?
Yes.
All right, we will get started. Call this meeting to order. Harlem Consolidated School District Regular School Board Meeting Monday, June 15th, 2020 at 6 p.m. We'll start with roll call.
Mr. Barger?
Here.
Mrs. Brogan here. Dr. Flanagan?
Here.
Mr. Sterling?
Here.
Mr. Meister?
Here.
Jay Brogan?
Here.
And Ms. Meeks is absent.
Superintendent.
Ms. Schaller, Curriculum and Instruction.
John Tran, Business and Operations.
Scott Rollins.
Chris Arduino, Recording Secretary.
Okay, we need a motion and a second to appoint Sue as the Secretary Pro Tem for tonight's meeting.
Motion.
Second.
We got to do a call on it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ms. Brogan, yes. Dr. Flanagan?
Yes.
Mr. Sterling?
Yes.
Mr. Meister?
Yes.
Jay Brogan?
Yes.
Ms. Meeks? Mr. Barger?
Yes. Do we have a flag? I don't see it.
He started to present and then you went to that.
Ah, there it is.
Jason.
Okay. If we can stand up, then we will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, which it stands, one nation, under
Under
God,
God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, can we get a motion and a second to approve the agenda with the following changes? We have no student travel 10A. We have no facility requests 10B. No addendum. And I think that's all the changes.
And no consent agenda items, 11 being C.
Oh, 11B, yes, consent agenda item 11B and 11C.
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Need a vote?
Dr. Flanagan?
Aye.
Mr. Sterling?
Aye.
Mr. Meister?
Aye.
Jay Brogan?
Aye.
Ms. Meeks? Mr. Barger?
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan? Aye.
Okay, can we get a motion and a second to approve board meeting minutes, regular and closed, from May 26th, 2020?
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Sterling,
Aye.
Mr. Meister,
Aye.
Ms. Brogan, Ms. J. Brogan,
Aye.
Mr. Barger,
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan, aye. Dr. Flanagan.
Aye.
Okay, Mr. Bloom, do we have any awards and recognition tonight?
Not this evening.
Okay, thank you. No comments to the community that I know about. We'll turn it over to Mr. Rand for approval of the bills.
All right, thank you very much. The total payables for this period were $1,054,952.55. There were two payrolls this period for a total of $5,586,031.54. The total expenditure of $6,640,984.09. Split out by fund, the education fund paid $5,490,732.68. Tort fund paid $56,672.53. The operations and maintenance fund paid $326,099.78. The debt service fund paid $240,896.75. The transportation fund paid $290,015.28. The IMRF Social Security Fund paid $219,084.22. And the Capital Projects Fund paid $17,482.85. Again, for total expenditures of $6,640,984.09. Are there any unanswered bill questions?
Okay, thank you. Can we get a motion and a second to approve the bills?
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Meister,
Aye.
J. Brogan,
Aye.
Mr. Barger,
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan, abstain. Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
Mr. Sterling,
Aye.
Okay, on to communication and committee reports. I will start that off. I did get one board monitoring report back from the last meeting. Everyone could try to remember to email those. I'd appreciate it. That one was all satisfactory.
Hey, Larry, can you send us that email again with the,
Sure.
thank you.
Next regular meeting is Monday, July 13th at 6 p.m. We have an education committee meeting this Wednesday, June 17th at 6 p.m. And we have policy meeting coming up June 22nd at 6 p.m. And with that, I have asked Mr. Al Molby from IASB to give us a little presentation on the executive search and answer any questions that anyone might have.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. Well, thanks for including me on your agenda for tonight and give me a chance to talk a little bit about the superintendent search process that IASB does. I provided a lot of material to the district that we would normally have in terms of handouts for a presentation that would be done in face-to-face. But I know you've got all of those materials. I also have a real short PowerPoint that was put together to kind of give an overview real quickly as far as the process itself. So if that's available to be shown to you, then that probably would be an easier way than going through the handouts.
It's been posted. It's
It's
ready
been
to roll.
posted?
Just
Okay, great.
Let them know
All right,
you
well-
want the slide.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and go ahead. The first slide obviously is just a heading regarding your district and from IASB, and the second slide is my contact information. I've been a consultant with IASB for over 5 years now. I'm a retired superintendent from the western suburbs in Cook County, and I've been working with IASB for over 5 years now, doing searches primarily in the northern part of the state. I work out of the Lombard office for IASB, and we have 3 consultants that work out of our Lombard office, and we have another 4 consultants that work out of our Springfield office. But we actually all 7 work together to work with districts throughout the state in conducting superintendent searches as well as other administrative searches as well. I've done several searches in the northern part of the state over the time that I've been working with IASB. So that gives you just a little overview of myself. The third slide is kind of a overview not only of the executive search department, but of the school board association as a whole. We're your association, and so there's a lot of firms do superintendent searches as private for-profit firms. We do them as a part of IASB. We serve only the districts in Illinois, although we conduct searches for superintendents, and we draw candidates from all across the country. But our goal is to serve the districts and the boards of education in the Illinois public schools, and that's pretty much the focus of our department. The next slide gives another another overview as far as our executive search department itself. IASB has been doing superintendent searches for over 50 years, and we conduct more searches than any of the private firms every year throughout the state. We've got, like I said, 7 educators that are all part of our department, and together we've got over 300 years of education experience. Almost all of us are retired superintendents primarily. We've been involved with searches in the last 10 years. We've conducted over 270 searches. Every year in the state, there's about 125 superintendent changeovers as far as districts, and we conduct about 1/4 of the searches that are done for those position changes. So we do lead the market in terms of doing searches. And again, we base what we do according to IASB's foundational principles of board governance, and the main job, obviously, of the school board is to employ a superintendent, and that's our job, is to support you as a board of education in that process, and that's what we focus on. We want to make sure that the process works for you as a board, for the district, obviously, and it doesn't just stop when a contract's signed, when a new superintendent's hired. As part of the association, there's follow-up field service support for the new superintendent in working with the board. So it's kind of a continuation of the process itself. The next slide is kind of gives an overview of the fact that we don't, even though we just serve Illinois districts, we draw candidates from around the country. We're a vital member of the National Affiliation of Superintendent Searchers, NAS. And in that, we work with over 40 states, similar departments to ours, as subsidiary of the National School Board Association. And so any search that we do for a district here in Illinois, it gets promoted through NAS and through the vacancy notifications that we utilize through that organization, and we work with consultants throughout the country. If we get candidates from other states that are interested in coming to Illinois, we can contact these consultants in these other states, and they'll be able to give us information regarding those candidates or the districts where they're coming from. So we're able to really network throughout the country through this organization, and also draw on best practice in terms of the search process itself. The next slide, entitled Recruitment. As far as attracting candidates, we have found that when a candidate is looking to relocate to Illinois, one of the first places they look as far as vacancies is on our website, IASB's website. So that's one of the main initial sources of promoting it. But we recruit through a variety of different organizations that we're that we're a part of or that we're linked to, and you can see those all listed there. And even though networking opportunities are a little bit more limited these days, we still have communication through different sources and online with these different organizations, and hopefully we'll be able to continue as we work with districts, in the months ahead in conducting searches for the 2021. Hopefully we'll be able to resume in some of these meetings and conferences where we'll be able to continue to interact with colleagues from around the country. But we do advertise extensively as well. On the next page, or excuse me, the next slide, there's kind of an overview of the different sites that we advertise. As soon as you were to decide to go with us to conduct the search, we'll post it on our website initially, and also on the IASA, the school administrator's website. And so that way people are automatically notified who are linked to that we would be doing the search. In the meantime, we put together a brochure to advertise the vacancies, and then that gets linked to all of these other organizations through the various job connections, the job sites, as far as places for vacancies to be posted. And that brochure will be posted as a PDF. And so through these different organizations, connections are made. We find that we have about 7,000 recipients of our email blasts through Higher Logic. It used to be Constant Contact, but we have recipients that are always notified of our vacancies of the districts that we're working with. So we do a very wide sweep of promoting the positions, and that's why I think that it's important to know that even though we're Illinois based, we have a very wide range of opportunities to attract candidates and recruit candidates from around the country, as well as in the state of Illinois. The next slide is just a graphic example of our process. We call it the proven pyramid, and it shows from step 1 all the way up through step 10, the various pieces of our process along the way, starting with the development of a profile for the next superintendent. We as we're putting together the brochure to promote the position, we survey staff, community, as well as board. But I would also then meet individually with each board member and conduct an interview via phone to get some discussion time as far as the board's perspectives on the next superintendent, and all of those responses, along with the responses from a community and staff survey, would go into putting together the profile, the desired characteristics of the next superintendent. One of the options that we have that's not part of our basic search, because some districts choose not to do it, but we would also be available to hold a public meeting to have stakeholders come together to provide input. That's obviously been a little more difficult over these past few months, but depending on the timing, or other ways to possibly reach the stakeholders beyond the survey, we could look into that. The next slide starts with kind of a breakdown, and it's very similar to these items that are listed here were included on the letter in the documents that I provided, the letter to the board president, that kind of breaks down what our basic search includes, starting with not only the fact that we would design it to meet the needs of you as a board and of the district, but I would be the coordinator who would be available all the time regarding any questions or any communication that needed to be with the board president or with the board itself. And we would work with you in terms of developing a timeline. I've provided a projected sample timeline in your materials as far as what we could possibly be looking at as far as conducting the search process. As I indicated previously, talked about the community and staff online survey that all together goes into the announcement of vacancy. The announcement of the vacancies, it's a brochure format. It used to be mailed out, but as times have changed, it gets posted as a PDF onto our site and then is linked to all of the job sites. So candidates who are interested in applying, click on the link to the brochure. It opens up, it gives an overview of the district. It gives an overview of programming within the district, finances within the district, as well as some of the characteristics that have been identified as part of that profile of the next superintendent. It also gives specific application directions and time frame as far as things that the candidates need to know and what they have to have a completed application packet. On that next slide, the additional steps in the full search include assisting the board in identifying the ideal candidate's needed profile, as I discussed before. Also, we can work with you in providing guidance on appropriate compensation packages if that assistance is needed. Not only do we announce and advertise the vacancy, but then we actively, again, interact with the nationwide network that I described initially to promote your position and attract candidates from places beyond Illinois. While the position is advertised and posted, we use AppleTrack, which is now Frontline. We use that as the application system. We collect applications, and in that application, it's a pretty extensive set of questions that need to be answered, as well as requests for other pieces of information from the candidates, such as complete resume, transcripts, licensure information, cover letter, and so on. We want to make sure that all of those items that you request are included before we consider it a complete application packet. We screen all of the applications. I say we, that would be myself and at least one other consultant, possibly two. Tom Leahy is another consultant. Actually, he's our director, and he would be somebody who would very likely possibly help with the screening process, as well as another consultant. We screen them all independently of each other, and then we come together to come up with a common lists of candidates that we see meeting the criteria that you as a board have determined in the profile itself, and then that would comprise the slate of candidates that would be presented to you that we would recommend for you to interview. We go through and make sure that they all have proper up-to-date Illinois licensure. We verify references that they've provided for us. We don't do a background check per se. We're not allowed to by law, but we do confirm references. We speak to references that they provide for us, as well as some they don't provide for us that we may know people who know of them as superintendents or as candidates. And then we also speak to the candidates themselves and conduct phone interviews with them to get just a good overview of them as a potential candidate for your superintendent position before we present their application material to you. And then one of the last steps there would be to assist you in establishing an interview format and work through the logistics of interviewing. We can provide you with interview material. We have a bank of about 185 interview questions. We can work with you in the logistics of that should you need that assistance as well. Also, we would work with you in helping to prepare for a site visit. We certainly feel it's important for a board to, if possible, have two board members go to visit the district of their final choice to visit his or her district to get kind of a local perspective of him or hers in their district, and set up some smaller interview settings if possible. Again, kind of depending on what things are like as far as face-to-face interviewing. And then we also, as I said, we don't just, once the position is offered and the contract is signed, we aren't done. That's not, we don't feel that that's all there is. We want to make sure that it's a successful transition. So our field service department provides a post-search board superintendent workshop to really deal with any topics that you as a board would be interested in working with your incoming superintendent on, whether that be goal setting, evaluation, any other items that you feel would be important to include in that, and that would all be done through your field service director. These are all steps that are part of our full basic search, and that's That's what's provided. And there are some additional pieces that can be included on that next slide. There's kind of I guess it's kind of an a la carte menu of some additional things. If not all boards really want these things, so we don't include them as part of our full search. But these are things that if you wish as a board to include, then there's some additional costs in that because we don't quote that as part of our basic fee, which could include interviews with in-district personnel and stakeholders prior to the actual advertising of the position. We can do additional advertising through national print if needed, and that would just be the cost itself of the advertising. We don't find that a lot of districts want to do that. It used to be that print advertising in things such as Education Week and ASA's Digest and so on were places that you would advertise. But now, because all of the job bank sites are linked together and promoted online, that we find sometimes it's really not cost effective. But if you want that, we can certainly do that, and then that would just be the cost of the ad itself. We can also conduct initial interviews of the semifinalists if that's something that you wish, and then just bring you finalists, and we would do that in our offices with myself and another consultant, and then narrow that down to however many finalists you'd like to have, and we can do that, but that would be additional cost. Generally, we don't find boards selecting this as an option as much either. They tend to want to do all of the initial interviews and then narrow that slate of 6 to 8 down to possibly 2 or 3 finalists, and then have those finalists back for more extensive interviews involving staff, involving community groups and so on, and have a more extensive final interview process at that point. And so generally we don't find a lot of districts selecting that, but that's certainly something that can be done. We can work with you in terms of mock interviewing if that's something that a board needs, and we can also facilitate in-district group interviews of the finalists if that's something that you'd like to have assistance with, where we would come in and help to facilitate interviewing that might involve staff and community groups, while the board is also then interviewing the finalists on their own. So these are all additional pieces that some boards choose to have one or even all of them as a part of their process. Some feel that the basic search that we provide is inclusive enough, all the way from the beginning, where a lot of input is gathered through the surveys, which can include comments from the public and the staff if you wish, my interviews with you as board members individually, and from that starting point all the way through the process, the end of the process itself is very inclusive with the search that we've established as the basic search. The next slide shows you the total cost of the search, determined by the board and by ISB once you've decided if you want any of those additional services. If not, the proposed search would be the fee would be $9,900. That's based on a fee schedule based on your average daily attendance. This was our the fee schedule for this past year. We've not changed it yet, and this is what the price it would be good through next year as well. So that would be the cost based on your average daily attendance. The next slide, as far as why choose IASB, is in kind of concluding here. It just kind of gives you an overview of our success rate, I guess. It's really the retention rate, shows you the percentage of superintendents that we've placed throughout the state of Illinois, and how many of them are still in their same position. And over the last 4 or 5 years, obviously the ones that we placed for 2019-20 are in their same spot, or hopefully they were in their same spot as the year came to an end. The ones we placed last year were in their same spot as well, so 100%. But even back through 2015, 2016, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 72% of the superintendents that we placed for boards in their positions are still in those same positions, and that says a lot, because it's still a relatively transient profession, and districts who have superintendents who have been in their district a long time and have stayed there a long time are not only lucky, but it's kind of an anomaly. And so we feel that that is a pretty good success rate of retention or longevity, and that shows it's been a good match for the board as well as for the superintendent. We do have a guarantee of our services if we find for whatever reason at the end of that first year that it's not working out based on either the superintendent or the Board of Education's perspective, that at the end of that year, if the superintendent's not going to stay or be retained, we would do another complete search at no cost. That's kind of it's kind of a money back guarantee for our Board of Education. And again, we've got a lot of experience throughout the state of Illinois. We've worked in over 75 counties. We worked with over 270 school districts that we've been able to place superintendents for, as well as other administrators, certified positions as well. We do provide assistance in doing searches for assistant superintendents and business managers and executive directors of co-ops and principals as well. The last slide is just kind of wraps it up similar to what we started with. We're your advocates, we're your association, and we know that this is an important decision, and we want to make sure that that you're successful from the point where you've hired your superintendent on. And so hopefully, the search will be, done in conjunction with you. And like I always tell boards that I work with, it's your search. I just do the grunt work, and that's kind of how we approach it. Is we want it to be, you're successful for you. I'm available, for meetings as well as for phone calls, at any point throughout the whole process, from the time the contract signed to start the search all the way until through the end. Kind of a quick overview. I hope everybody can hear me. I hope I kind of addressed the things that were included in the documents that I provided for you, and I certainly would entertain any questions that you might have.
How many applicants can we expect?
That's a great question that I never give an exact answer to, because it varies by geographic region, it varies by size of district, it varies by obviously compensation packages and so on. But we're finding, and we found during this last year, actually the last couple of years, on the average, we find anywhere from 30 to 80 applications, depending on, like I said, a variety of things. Typically, an average search is going to find, probably around 50 applicants. It's interesting. Things kind of shifted a little bit over the last 3 or 4 months here, and we have found some districts that superintendents decided to stay on for another year, where they were actually thinking about looking, but because of the situations with with COVID and so on, they just felt like they needed to be there for their district. So the pool itself is different. I think as things, hopefully return to what we would think that would be a normal type of, life, that things will resume and change will continue to take place. But I would expect, and a long answer here to your question, I would expect anywhere between, 40 to 60 applicants is generally what we find for a good-sized district like your own. You'll have a lot of interest. It'll attract candidates, and there'll be a lot of current superintendents, a lot of people who were superintendents who maybe have not been retained or changed, positions or whatever. So there'll be a variety of experiences as far as people coming to apply for your district. And I think that a district your size, depending on the desires of the board, as far as your want of experience, of an experienced superintendent, that's certainly something that we would, include in the screening process on our end. If you feel that that's something that's vital to have superintendent experience, we would screen for that, and we would only bring you candidates who have that type of experience. You'll get a lot of assistant superintendents. We find a lot of candidates that we've had this year are people who are assistant superintendents or other district level positions that are looking for, that first step into a superintendency. But a district your size, may provide a different filter in that respect as far as needing the experience. So I would guess, we would be looking at anywhere from a 40 to 60 applicants for the position, especially getting started, this early. I think you're in a good time, good timing as far as, getting the search going. I think, that will help in terms of the process and help in terms of the pool.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
I have a question. This is Julie Morris.
Yes.
Current superintendent. How much of this process happens in open session and how much happens in closed session?
The only part of the process that takes place in closed session is actually when I would come to your board to present candidates material to you, and because it's potential employer, potential personnel discussion, and most of the material at that point is still confidential in terms of the process itself, and so that's done in closed session. Open session would involve presenting to the board the results of the survey and the results of interviews with the board members. I would provide a whole summary of board members' responses to some questions that we would talk about as far as the next superintendent. It's all done anonymously, but you would get a compilation of everybody's responses. That's all done in open session. If there's a need for an update of the process along the way, that would be done in open session. So really, the only thing that's done in closed session is actually the discussion of the candidates themselves and then the interviews themselves.
Thank you.
Unless and I guess there's a caveat. The only piece that would be closed would be if the board sees a need for some specific discussion with me regarding something in particular involving employment of personnel. And I think that's not often, but generally, that would be the only other piece of the process that would possibly be done in closed. But otherwise, everything's in open session up until the presentation of candidates piece.
And one other question that I have is, if the board decides to work with IASB, can they determine at a later date if they want any of the add-ons?
Yes, absolutely. That would certainly be something that's always available, especially given that we're starting early. And if you as a board would decide, down the road that you want to do, some of these additional things, then we would just add that into the package itself.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Good question, Julie.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Molby, for your presentation.
Absolutely. I appreciate being involved and being invited. And if there's any follow-up questions that come, that from any other discussion that you need to get a hold of me, you've got my contact information, my cell number, my email. Please do that. As soon as the board decides that you want to get started and IASB is the direction that you want to go, we'll you need the signed contract, and we would go ahead and start getting some of the specifics in place and set kind of a time frame as far as when would be the good time to survey the community and the staff and kind of begin building the profile to get the brochure put together and get the position promoted.
Sounds good. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
being included.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, I will, it is on the agenda tonight I will ask for an approval on selecting IASB for our search firm. And that ends my report. Sue Brogan.
Hi, everyone. A couple of things on my report, if I can get to the right screen. Next business service meeting is Wednesday, July 8th at 6 p.m. We need to discuss tonight for delegate assembly questions is if we have anything for IASB, any proposals that we would like to propose for new IASB resolutions. amendments to existing position statements, reaffirmation of existing position statements, or belief statements. The deadline for that is June 24th. However, earlier submissions are better for them to look at. Is anybody aware of anything that they would like to submit?
Yeah, we could discuss about our stance on with the CDC guidelines and the busing of kids. Do you know what I mean?
I know what you're saying, but I think that's a CDC guideline, not an IASB regulation or resolution.
Well, they could put out a statement against what they think. We can actually have a voice on what ISA, what we believe, and what we should actually propose, instead of then put that towards CDC.
The main problem I see on that's the timeline, because we wouldn't be doing this until November.
I get you. Okay, then I ain't got nothing.
Yeah, because you're right, Larry. The vote wouldn't be till November.
Then I'm good.
Anybody else or any questions on it? Okay, I think that ends my report.
Thank you. Mr. Sterling, your report.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Ms. Jill Brogan.
I wanted to say thank you to Nicholas Conservatory and the Park District for lighting orange on the greenhouse. It was wonderful. It was great to see so many families out there. A lot of kids in Cub Scouts getting their pictures taken. It looked great. And that is all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Meister, your report.
Thank you, Larry. I don't have any report this evening.
Thank you. Dr. Flanagan, your report.
Thanks, Larry. I too do not have anything additional to report tonight.
All right, thank you very much. Dr. Erb, do you have anything that you wanted to add? I know you don't have anything listed on the agenda.
Nothing this evening. I'll have a few items at our next meeting, but nothing this evening. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Arand, take it away.
All right, thank you. My first item tonight is a recommendation to approve a resolution declaring surplus property and authorizing disposal of property. That's for books at Loves Park, some desk and chairs at Marquette, and monitors, computers, and network equipment that were stored at the high school. So any questions about the surplus? All right, I have two different financial reports tonight, which I know is exciting. The first one is going to be an April Treasury report, and then I'll do the third quarter financials. So I'll try and run through that as quick as I can, but make sure to give you guys relevant info. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to stop me. So the April information is somewhat interesting because we're starting, it's the first month since we've been closed, so we begin to see a little bit of kind of how things are trending as we wrap this year up. So I don't know if you guys can see, but that first page that I normally go over, and I normally don't do this in business service. I do this in business services, but we didn't have one, so I thought I wanted to make sure the board had the info. So I just spent a little more time on that tonight. So for the education fund revenues, those revenues are up $533,000, but the federal sources are down $802,000, and some of that will come up in the quarterly info. Most of that is Medicaid. We had a large payment last year that came in, so we knew it'd be a little bit less. And then with the shutdown to Medicaid is going to come in a little bit lower, but it's a pretty large number. So that's something we'll continue to watch as those revenues come in. So this April report obviously is before May, and in May we did receive the $4 million from the property tax relief grant. So that wasn't obviously originally in the budget back when we did it in September. So that will be additional money that has come in. For Ed Fund expenditures for salaries and benefits, they are up 0.78% or $350,000. So that is a little bit lower because we do have a 27th pay coming in June for our 9-month staff. So outside of that, the other expenditures are down $200,000. And if you look on the April amounts outside of salaries and benefits, those amounts came in quite a bit less because we weren't operating. So we'll kind of see that trend as we go. So for the tort fund, they're only $4,000 away from their revenue budget. So they'll hit their revenue budget, and their expenditures are down 143,000 year over year. Most of that is insurance based. Operations and maintenance is about 12,000 of their almost 4.8 million in revenue. So that will hit their revenue budget for the year too. Their expenditures are down 138,000 through April. So some of these things we talked a little bit earlier in the year. The county made essentially what is a double mobile home payment. They didn't make one at all last year, and they made 2 this year. And then they paid something called interest on taxes, which they've never paid since I've been there too. So those were 2 sources that came a little bit higher. So like in that case, when you look at debt service, that revenue line out of the 6.1 million is already 23,000 over through April. And remember, some of those revenues will come in July and August, and they will come back to this fiscal year. And then the expenditures are about 1,500 on their budget. So that's right on. For transportation, they are exactly at their local sources. So property taxes, any other fees, their sale of equipment is right on. But in this report through April, their state sources are down 1.6 million, or 2 categorical payments. They did get 5 last year. We know we're teetering on 3 to 4. Through this report here, they had 2. They did get a 3rd payment last week, so that's good. So that may be the last payment. We may get another one before the end of August. If I had to guess, I would say that would be our last payment. But transportation salaries and benefits are actually down $2,700. Again, there's going to be that 27th pay. Overall expenses are up 29,000. So that's really the only fund that's probably going to come in under the revenue budget because of the categorical if we miss that 4th payment. IMRS Social Security Fund is up 203,000 on the revenue, and their expenditures are actually down 41,000, which is good. So a little bit of that is the 27th pay, but it's nice to see that trending down. Some of that is our H9 closure also. Capital projects are coming in as projected. So working cash revenues, we're about 8,000 behind budget. A lot of that was interest because of that bond coming in, so we probably will end a few thousand short. And then we had budgeted 2.5, but issued 2.3 million. So one thing just to note too, if you look at the working cash expenditure side, I had only planned on transferring out what we were going to spend, but then Chapman and Cutler had us transfer the whole bond amount out into O&M. So those will come in a little bit higher than budget because I had planned on issuing it, keeping it there, and then just sending what we're spending. So that'll be a little bit different than what I had budgeted. Fire life safety has already hit the revenue numbers for the year. They're $2,000 over, and expenditures are trending in just slightly less than I had budgeted. So that's kind of the main highlights of the funds. Under food service, we did not get an April government reimbursement. So we're trying to look into that. I don't know if it had to do with the closure or what, but they're pretty timely with that. So I got to look into that. And then on the healthcare side, healthcare is up 1.3% or 154,000. I anticipate that trending down a little bit over the next few months as most of the medical facilities were closed for an extended period of time there. So it's kind of my quick run through of the Treasurer's report for April. Are there any questions relating to anything on that?
Josh, I have a question. Have we reached out to our insurance provider for our buses to see if we can remove some of the vehicles that are not being used currently due to COVID and get or workman's comp, get money back from them?
So I have not specifically had that conversation, but we're in the co-op. So a lot of those, a portion of what we pay is a fixed cost to buy the insurance policies for the year, and the rest of it goes into the insurance loss pool. So any additional funds in that loss pool, when they close that year, would eventually come back to us. They just had a meeting a few weeks ago about kind of what this next year looks like. That topic did not specifically come back about distributing funds because they have a way to do that, but not immediately. So some of that though will reflect in our experience as we go, not for this upcoming year that starts in a couple weeks, but we missed the last quarter of a lot of our staff being here, and we did drive a lot less miles. Not that accidents are a big experience factor for us, but on the workers' comp side, that should help there too. So we'll get some of it back that way, and hopefully that lowers some of our upfront renewals on that. But a portion of that fee goes to buying insurance policies when the year begins. So
Okay.
I can keep that. I can talk to our broker about that and just see, because I know on like the personal side, a lot of the insurance companies are giving a small discount, but I haven't seen anything like that on the school district side.
I have on the workman's comp side and the vehicle insurance side, so that's why I was asking.
Okay, yeah, I can check into it, but I haven't heard anything on that yet. Does anyone else have a treasurer's report question? Okay, so the quarterly report, this is the third quarter report. This will be the last quarterly report until the audit, which won't be till December. So we will have a May treasurer's report, and then the rest of that will just come in with the auditors on that. So this is this is a month back, but it looks at it a little bit differently and kind of breaks out why things are up or down. So feel free to ask me any questions. Some of this might be slightly redundant. Does everyone have it up? Are we good? Okay. So in the education fund, the local revenues are up 1.4 million. Property taxes are 685,000 of that, and that's due to the tax levy. Local revenues that have increased are mobile home tax by 84,000. So it's normally in the low 40s, and they didn't pay anything last year, and they made a double payment this year. Interest on taxes, that's that revenue source that they'd never paid before. That was 69,500. Music fees, high school fees, and then our Sprint license fees go up 3% each year. So all those sources combined equal $221,000 increase over the third quarter last year. Our food service sales have actually increased by 34,500 through March, and CPPRT has surprisingly increased 584,000. So that's good to see that come up, although that will go back down as corporate income goes down in that next quarter, but it's good to see that up $500,000. Local revenues that have decreased are interest on investments, as you can expect. That's down 53,000. Activity fees, Parker Center registration, elementary fees, AP, driver's ed, and athletic fees. Oh, and parking down 12,000. So that's a total of 135. So the first group I read was up 221. This is down 135. So you often see those. You'll have some that are increased, some are decreased. So that's not unusual. State revenues are up 958,000. Evidence-based funding increase was 780,000, which relates to the state fully funding the EBF and adding money in for FY20. Grant revenues were up 235,000 due to ECB funding. This is due to a timing of payments. They made a bunch of ECB payments, so it makes it look like they've paid more, but that will equal out as we get to the end of the year. Federal grant revenues are down 700,000. So Title I, Title II, and Title III are down about 138,500. That's not necessarily allocation decreases. That's just timing of expenses. But the Medicaid revenue is down 844,000. Food service, lunch, and breakfast are actually up 239,000. So this is through March. That may have to do with why they didn't make it that April payment, but that should be timing related. Other federal revenues are up 45,000. So that makes, but overall federal grant revenues are down to 700. So ed fund revenues through the third quarter are up 1.7 million. Expenditures are up a total of 660,000, and salaries and benefits make up 432,000 of that. Purchase services were up 146,000. So we had 9 for the facility study. We made some copier. So when we did the copier, we had a 6-figure savings on that, but for the first 6 months, we had some double payments to get to those savings. So those are up 16,000. Our travel line was up 21,000. And then we had a 20,000 increase on online services and licenses. These are softwares mainly paid through from grants. And then there's a line called subscriptions that are up 60,000. So we used to have a workbook and textbook line, and then we created one for subscriptions, like per student models that aren't technically textbooks or workbooks, because that's kind of where a lot of things are going. So That's just a reallocation of other money, but it's in a subscription line. Capital outlay was up 83,000, but we actually were down 41 from a server. We bought the copiers, so that was 74,000 more, but that was a one-time deal, so we won't have to make annual payments on that. And we bought the food service box truck for 37,000. Other expenditures were up 277. So there's dues and fees that were up 10. Athletic entry to events was up 14, and special tuition payments were up 253,000. We did budget an additional 250,000 for that, so hopefully that looks like it's trending okay or within budget, although it is an increase. Supplies were down 90,000, and non-cap equipment was down 190,000. That's from laptop purchases were down, projectors, and some Promethean boards. A lot of that is just how we're spending tech and when we buy that tech. So again, all of those expenses were up 100 or 228,000 combined. So for the tort fund, revenues were up 17,000, and for most of these that rely on property taxes, it's because of the tax levy, the mobile home tax, and that additional tax interest. Expenditures were down 138,000 due to workers' comp insurance and liability insurance, although this will go back up for the next year based on claims in the insurance market. So we've seen kind of swings in our insurance based on our claim history, but one positive thing is we are in the co-op, which insulates us from really, really large increases. The insurance market right now is a mess because of COVID, and everyone is unsure about what's happening, so everyone is charging a bunch more money. But our increase mainly is because we had a pretty low workers' comp year fall off our experience history and a little bit higher year roll on to our history. So we will keep working to try and get those as low as we can so that it comes back down. And then the salaries and benefits in the tort fund are down 39,000, and most of that is due to the 27 pay for the 9-month staff. So operations and maintenance fund, their revenues went up 222,000 due to the tax levy, and their expenditures are actually down just under 28,000. So salaries and benefits were down 65,000 due to a reduction in positions at H9. We had those couple, and there might be some positions that were open longer and not filled. Purchase services were up 96,000. A lot of that is communications, Comcast or internet, up 84,000, but a lot of that is because we're getting a check back from E-rate. You can get E-rate 2 different ways, right off the bill or a check back. And even though we prefer it right off the bill, there's a lot of forms to fill out with making sure that all Comcast has the right boxes checked. So they're going to mail us a check, which is why that's up. So once we get that, that should put us back in line or within budget. Telephone is up 9,500. We're seeing that telephone costs are increasing, which is why we need to look at an IP, having phones come in over the IP. So capital outlays up 82,000. We did the cafeteria tables at Rock Hut. The high school needed a water heater, and then the Ralston sign we had to pay for, but we did get that back from insurance, but it still shows up as a capital outlay expense. So supplies were down 117,000, mainly because of H9 closure, natural gas and electricity costs being down. Non-cap equipment was down 24,000. We bought a projector last year for the auditorium at the high school, and there was a water heater replacement. That's it for that fund. Debt service revenues are up 38,500, mainly due to that additional mobile home tax and the tax interest. And the bond payments were up $858. So for transportation, local revenues were up 29,500. As I mentioned, we did receive that third payment on June 10th. But the state is down 792,000 because of the categorical payment. And our bus trade-in revenue is down 17,000 just based on the buses that we were trading in. Expenditures were up 91,000, and salaries and benefits were down 1,700. So purchase services were up 35,000. That was travel, special ed contracted services, and some bus repair items. Supplies were up 40,000. So that's some tablets, diesel and leaded fuel, because we had further to drive, so our fuel costs are up a little, and bus maintenance supplies. Capital outlay was up 10,200. That's because we needed that leak detection tank monitor for the pollution because our monitor went bad. So that's pretty much it for the transportation side. Revenues for IMRF Social Security revenues are up 206,000 due to tax levy, mobile homes, and tax interest. Expenditures are down 47,000, mostly due to the 27 pay. Capital projects fund expenditures were down 73,000 through the third quarter. This is just the number of projects we have going on, and that will go up as our bond projects bills start to come in. Especially since this is only through March, we really didn't have any of those project bills yet. The working cash fund revenues are up $244. There are no expenditures in that fund. Life safety revenues are up 89,000 due to the levy, the mobile home, and the tax interest. And expenditures are down 744,000. That's just because we had a lot of life safety projects last year, and this upcoming year they're going to be capital projects. So that is it for the quarterly treasurer's report. Did you guys have any questions on anything in there? Sorry if I went too fast. If anyone has any questions after this, please feel free to just let me know. But if there are no questions, that is my report.
All right, thank you. Mr. Rollinson.
Thank you, Larry. Nice to see everybody tonight. I actually have 3 items tonight. So my first item is a recommendation tonight for a total of 4 transfers and a total of 65 employments, most of those having to do with summer school. Also on the personnel agenda tonight is a recommendation for a position restructure that I meant to bring to you last month, and I apologize to Dr. Erb for not getting that done last month, but we're bringing that forward tonight to change the position from the ELL coordinator to the director of multicultural education starting July 1st of this year. As you probably are aware, that position continues to grow. Specifically, next year we're going to be implementing the OLA program at the middle school, and there's also a lot of summer responsibilities that this position really does require in order to help support our students and our families. So we're recommending changing that position, not only the title, but the contract length from a 205-day contract to a 260-day contract. And with that, the total additional cost to the district is listed on the memo at $20,485. Does anybody have any questions about the personnel agenda? All right. My second item tonight is informational. We have accepted 9 resignations since we last met. Any questions on that one? Okay. And then my third item tonight is a recommendation for substitute teacher pay increase. I'm sure you had a time to read the memo, but I'll just give you a quick little background here. So as many of you know, there's several districts in the area that actually use a staffing agency to hire the substitute teachers, and that may be something we have to look at in the future. But right now, we're bringing this recommendation forward because as the minimum wage increases, the gap between the support staff substitute and the teacher substitute is it's getting really close together. And so in order to keep that gap apart, we're recommending a pay increase tonight and actually over the next couple of years. So I gave you a breakdown of some of the substitute rates in the area. And we do know after talking to several of the districts that many of them are also going to their boards with a recommendation for a pay increase as well for this next coming year. So in order to stay competitive, and we're also a little bit worried about how this whole COVID thing is going to affect our substitute teachers. We're worried about a decrease in interest of substitutes. So we're hoping to stay ahead of that curve. So tonight I'm recommending an increase of the daily rate from $100 to $110, an increase in the Harlem retired teacher rate from $115 to $125. And I'm also recommending that the long-term sub rates for teachers increase from 120 to 130 for teachers and 130 from 135 to 145 for Harlem retired teachers. So it's a $10 pay increase per day for all of those categories. And furthermore, so I don't have to come back in the next couple of years, I'm recommending tonight that we increase those rates by another $5 per day for the 21-22 school year, and again the following year by $5 per day for the following year. Also the cost of the district is listed on the back of the memo. Of course, those are estimates. We never really know how much we're going to spend, but so we just use some past data to make those estimates. Does anybody have any questions about any of that? All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Morris, do you have anything?
Nothing in open session this evening.
Very good, thank you. Okay, with that, can we get a motion and a second to approve consent agenda item 11A?
Motion.
Second.
Miss Jill Brogan,
Yes.
Mr. Barger,
Aye.
Miss Brogan, aye. Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
Mr. Sterling,
Aye.
Mr. Meister. You're muted, Rich.
Aye.
All right. Can we get a motion and a second to approve the resolution declaring surplus property?
Motion.
Second.
Mr. Barger,
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan, aye. Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
Mr. Sterling,
Aye.
Mr. Meister,
Aye.
Miss J. Brogan,
Aye.
Can we get a motion and a second to approve the recommendation for substitute pay increases?
Motion.
second. Mr. Barger,
Aye.
I think I did that already. Okay. Mrs. Brogan, aye. Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
Mr. Sterling,
Aye.
Mr. Meister,
Aye.
Miss J. Brogan,
Aye.
Can we get a motion and a second to approve the April 2020 Treasurers Report?
Motion.
second. Mrs. Brogan, aye. Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
Mr. Sterling,
Aye.
Mr. Meister,
Aye.
Miss J. Brogan,
Aye.
Mr. Barger.
Aye. Can we get a motion and a second to approve the superintendent search process with Al Molby of the Illinois Association of School Board Representatives? That was a base price of $9,900.
Motion.
Second.
Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
Mr. Sterling,
Aye.
Mr. Meister,
Aye.
Miss J. Brogan,
Aye.
Mr. Barger,
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan, aye.
Okay. Do we have any announcements or discussion?
None this evening.
Okay. We need a motion and a second to go into executive session for employment of personnel.
Motion.
Second.
I think we need a roll call.
Sterling,
Aye.
Mr. Meister,
Aye.
Miss J. Brogan,
Aye.
Mr. Barger,
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan, aye. Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
Okay.
2 minutes.
Sure. we are back in open session. And I will take a motion and a second. Hang on, I lost her name. To approve Parker Center Early Education Center Principal Aaron Anderson.
Motion,
Second.
Mr. Barger,
Aye.
Mrs. Brogan, aye. Dr. Flanagan,
Aye.
Mr. Sterling,
Aye.
Mr. Meister,
Aye.
Miss J. Brogan,
Aye.
All right, that's all we have for tonight. With that, I take a motion, a second to adjourn.
motion.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Have a great week, everyone.
You too.
You too. Have a great one.
Everybody.